Welcome to the Circle of Birth podcast. I'm your host and advocate, Ali Kranz. These podcasts are here to gather stories, people and information to better our understanding of the wisdom of birth and how we can reclaim our connections to birth from conception and beyond. You will hear stories not only from Australia but from all over the world, bringing together women, partners, midwives, doulas and all the people that have a birth story to share. So jump right in for this next Circle of Birth story. Welcome to the Circle of Birth. Today I am just delighted to talk to Sarah with these two stories that she has shared with us. Sarah is a hypnobirthing practitioner, so it was really good to get an insight into her toolbox that she used herself during her two births. These stories will really show you how being supported and in a positive environment around people that accept and honour your birth choices, how the births can turn out for Sarah. No, I forgot to link to her website. It's Sarah, Purvey, psychology.com. You can have a look in the show notes too from our website to link to her. So enjoy these two stories. Hi, Sarah.
Hi, Sarah.
Welcome to the Circle of Birth podcast.
Hi, thanks so much for having me.
That's okay. Now, do you want to just start off telling us briefly about your lovely family and yourself and the work that you're doing at the moment?
Yeah, sure. My name's Sarah, obviously, and I'm a psychologist and I'm a hypnobirthing practitioner and a now mother of two. I have two girls who are aged 2.5 and just 4 months now. And yeah, we've had two really beautiful birth experiences and two lovely little girls.
Great. And is that your little daughter there cooing away?
Yes, it is.
Yeah.
It's a very happy little thing.
Excellent.
So you might just have to excuse her in the background a bit.
She's lovely. She's singing away to you.
She's listening into you. I think she's looking at the computer now.
Oh, lovely. So now, how did you? Firstly, before we get into your two birth stories, did you want to tell us how you got into hypnobirthing and how that came about?
Sure. Yeah. When I became pregnant with Charlie, I became particularly interested in how I was going to have a natural birth. Before I became pregnant, I'd never really considered pregnancy or birth or anything like that. I was a psychologist and had been for about 6 or 7 years at that point, and loved my job, but birth or anything like that wasn't particularly my forte. But basically, as soon as I became pregnant, as soon as I knew that I was pregnant, I changed. I felt like this big change come over me, and like I was looking after this little person already. And I wanted to do everything that I possibly could to make this a positive experience, like a positive pregnancy and a positive birth experience. Because what I did know from psychology is that the early years are so important to the rest of a person's life, because I work with a lot of adults who have had very difficult childhoods and and often very extreme situations. But I sort of thought, well, what can I do to provide the best foundation that I possibly can for my children? And it makes sense to me that you start from conception, that you don't just start once the baby's born. That everything that you do is going to have some sort of influence on the life that you're creating, and then so I did know that a natural birth was optimum. And of course, there are lots of reasons why a natural birth doesn't happen, and they're perfectly valid. But I did sort of feel that there must be something that I can personally do to maximise my chances of having a natural birth. But unfortunately, a lot of the people around me weren't really having very positive experiences. Most of what people had to say about birth was pretty negative, or just something that that you have to endure to get the baby out. And then I heard a lot of people saying, oh, I wanted to have a natural birth, or I wanted to do it without drugs, but I couldn't. It was too hard. And and I even had some people laughing at me for thinking that I'd be able to have a birth without drugs, and things like, oh, we'll just wait, you just wait and see what it'll be like. And so, and I did think that, well, there must be something that I need to do. And I felt that it was a bit like, running a marathon, in that you probably had to do a bit of preparation in order to be able to get through the birth experience. And I also knew that I wasn't someone with a particularly high pain threshold. So I sort of thought, well, I'm going to need something psychologically to be able to help me get through if I don't want any pain relief, or if I just want to maximise my chance of having that natural birth. And so I started looking into how psychology can influence the birth and help you through, how hard childbirth is. And so I came across some calm birthing techniques, and I actually did that course, a calm birth course, because there wasn't anyone offering hypnobirthing in Tasmania at that time. But I also looked into hypnobirthing as well. I downloaded some Hypnobirthing Australia MP3s, and I also read a book on hypnobirthing, and that was all very interesting and really, really helped my partner as well as me. I felt like I was very supported, and like my partner would actually have a job to do. So all of those things particularly helped. And also I did sort of feel that the way that I wanted to have my birth experience was at home, because I kind of felt that being so invested in a natural birth and wanting to actually do it without drugs, I didn't feel like my birth experience was going to happen the way that I wanted it to in the hospital environment. And I knew a couple of family members that had really positive home births, and basically they were pretty much the only people that I knew that had really very empowering birth experiences. If I compared them to other people that I knew, their experiences were poles apart, and they were so positive about their experience. So that was something that was right for me. And anyway, then I'll fast forward to the idea of why I became a hypnobirthing practitioner, I guess. That sort of sets the foundation. But after I had Charlie, it was a very good, positive experience. We didn't actually get to birth at home in the end. We were mostly at home, but we did transfer at the end. But it was still a very good experience. And then shortly after she was born, 2 or 3 months, I think, I started to look into the Hypnobirthing Australia program. And I had a look online at that, and then I saw that they were doing practitioner training. And I really appreciated what their course seemed to have on offer. And I spoke to Melissa, who runs that program and does all the training. And, just something felt right, like in speaking to her, like she was so passionate, and the way that she had her course, like it was just really set up to provide people with that natural philosophy around birth, but also like how to be asking questions about the birth process, and how to be able to be in control of your journey somewhat, like when birth doesn't go the way that you expect it to. So, if you do end up needing to have that cesarean or some other type of intervention, that you can actually still have a bit of a say in that. And then also all the techniques that you learn as well, like are just so wonderful in helping you to be able to focus and get through those crisis points perhaps in the birth process. So yes, I did the training with Melissa, and then at about the end of 2014 I started taking a few classes, and it's really just expanded from there. Like it's just something that I've become very passionate about, and I see how much women and their partners change as a result of doing the course. They often come in very scared or just not knowing what to expect, and they leave the course sort of feeling excited about birth and empowered, and and having these birth experiences that are very different from what they otherwise would have been.
Yeah. It's very profound, isn't it, to be a part of their journey in that respect when they come into a situation with fear and being told all these perceptions on what childbirth is, and then to do a course and then to reconnect too as a partner and a couple is so important. Like you said, it's so important to make sure that the birth partner or the husband is fully part of the team, and how important that they are and in the role in birth too. So
absolutely, yeah. I mean, that's just as important as anything, because also, you hear of a lot of women, doing everything that they can and maybe doing, relaxation or hypnobirthing techniques, but then if their partner isn't there with them, it just doesn't work properly. That you really have to have that support team around you to be able to get you across the line.
Exactly.
Yeah. So do you want to just briefly talk about Charlie's birth, and then we'll get into Layla's birth?
Yeah, sure. So yeah, Charlie's birth, we, as I said, we'd planned it as a home birth, and so I went into labour with my membranes releasing, or waters releasing first. I was asleep on the couch in the afternoon, actually, and my husband was away at a beer festival, and I was having a little nap, and I was just sort of dozing, and my membranes released. So I was a bit surprised, because I was about at the 38-week mark then too. But I did know that, it was unlikely that anything was going to happen immediately, that it was fairly likely that everything was going to happen pretty slowly, and so I wasn't in a super panic or anything like that, and contacted Andrew, and he came home, and and I called my midwife, and she came around to check that that's actually what it was, that it was membranes releasing, and I wasn't sort of having any surges, and I'm going to call them surges, by the way, not contractions, because that's what we do in the hypnobirthing course, because language is a very powerful thing when you're talking about birth, or when you're talking about anything. But language, and using positive language, has a very different effect on your mind and your body. But yeah, so I wasn't feeling any surges at that point, and fast forward 24 hours, and I wasn't sort of really feeling much throughout that 24-hour period. Nothing was really happening. So I was in contact with my midwife, and we talked about what we should do. And Jo had said to me, that's my midwife, that most women go into labour within 24 hours, that it's about 90% of women actually just go into labour eventually. And so that was our plan, that we just sort of wait and see for 24 hours and see if anything happened. And by about the 24-hour mark, actually, things had just started to happen. So the surges were sort of starting to come at about 5 o'clock in the afternoon, and we were able to just manage at home, and Andrew was cooking dinner, and I was just sort of walking through and doing some relaxation, and everything was going well, and then Jo contacted us again just to see how things were going. So we had regular phone contact, and things were still really in the pre-labour mode at that point. And so Andrew and I were managing well, just the two of us. And then I think I had a shower, and things was really starting to increase, like when I was in the shower, and Andrew was there with me too. And then I think about 1 or 2 o'clock in the morning, things were really starting to increase, and I think Jo, the midwife, came then, and I just remember what a beautiful presence she had in the room.
Yeah.
Sorry. Oh.
You all right?
Oh, yeah, no, it's funny. Yeah, the emotions of the birth experience.
Yeah.
In such a positive way. Yeah, she came into the room, and she just quietly wandered in and just came up to me and whispered in my ear, and just said what an amazing job I was doing. And yeah, it was just so beautiful.
And that's exactly what you need, isn't it, as a first-time mama? To be empowered and just told that you are doing so well. That is wonderful.
Yeah,
What a
that's right.
beautiful lady.
Oh, look, she totally is. Yeah, no, she's the best midwife.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's just the best support person that you could possibly have. Like just this wonderful mixture of being so calm and so empathic and so knowledgeable as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, like she was just the best support that I could have possibly had. And I know, like I was managing well, but it was intense. Like I was in very active labour, and she was wonderful. Like in sort of providing these really hot flannels. Like she was getting these really super hot flannels and putting them on my back and my perineum, and I remember that being like really very comforting. And then Andrew was really good as well, like just doing some light touch, like on my arms and my back, which is a really good technique to be able to release endorphins. So everything was like, it was going beautifully, like it was a really calm, serene environment, and I really felt like I was being supported. It was like, you know, we were doing it together as a team. I didn't feel alone, even though what I was experiencing was really hard. And then, like a couple of hours later, and I was in the birth pool. Actually, I think that's what happened. It's a bit hard to remember now, but yeah. And I think I started to feel quite sick. So I was coming into transition. I feel like in hindsight, and I was becoming quite sick. And anyway, like I couldn't stay hydrated, like because I was quite sick. And I was given an injection, an anti-nausea injection, and they also put a drip on me. Joe and the second midwife had arrived by then, so I think they put a drip in, and that helped get things back on track, because things did sort of start to slow down a bit because I became a bit dehydrated. And by that point, like I was getting, you know, like I was pretty tired, and it was really hard. But there was one affirmation that I remembered from listening to the Hypnobirthing Australia affirmations, and it was that I'm prepared for any turn my birth may take. And those words just came to me, you know, so it was incredibly difficult, but I was able to reach those words, and I was able to say things to myself like, I can do this, even though, you know, my body was at its maximum. I was able to sort of still find those words to be able to get me through. And so anyway, things got back on track, and I got in the birth pool, and then I ended up being in the birth pool for quite a while, like in the second stage. And then things just didn't really progress in the second stage. So I got out of the pool, and we tried loads of different positions and lots of different things, everything that we could possibly consider, and basically, Charlie's head just didn't want to come out. Like she's proved to be a bit stubborn. So eventually we made the decision that, well, we probably need to go to hospital to just help things along. And again, the affirmation, I'm prepared for any turn that my birth may take, came to me at that time. So, you know, I wasn't freaking out or anything. Like I was just going with my body, like going with the surges and giving it everything that I could. And I felt quite calm about the whole thing, actually. Like I was quite happy to go to hospital, and I knew, like at the hospital, that I was sort of going to a safe place, because I had a really good obstetrician as a backup too, like who was in full support of my home birth. So I knew that she was going to be there, and she was the one that we were going to be having conversations with about what we might do. So that was reassuring to know as well. So went to hospital, and Charlie almost came, like she was really, really close to arriving. And eventually, like we all made the decision that I should have an episiotomy. And basically, as soon as that was done, Charlie arrived, and it was absolutely, just so amazing and magical to meet Charlie for the first time. And it didn't matter at all that she wasn't born in the water at home. Like it was just, we were just so overcome with with joy and amazement to actually see that there was a baby, that it wasn't sort of this funny feeling that you know that there is a baby, but until you actually see it arrive, it all becomes real.
Yeah, in that one moment.
Yeah, that's
like
right.
That.
Yeah. And she didn't cry. Like, she came out like, you know, this long labour. Like, I was in active labour for about 18 hours in the end. And you know, she wasn't crying at all. Like, and her eyes were wide open, looking around at us and looking around at other people, and she was such a calm baby. Like, she, you know, she barely cried. And yeah, just an amazing little baby. And everyone said to me, "Oh, she's so calm and she's so alert." Everyone used to say that about her. And she's not a calm toddler now. Let me just tell you that. But she's a fiery 2-year-old now. But certainly as a baby for a long, long time, she was a very calm, alert, and happy, very happy little thing. So I'm sure that the birth experience has played some role in that. I'm sure it's temperament as well. But yeah, no, certainly I'm sure that the entrance that she's had to her life has had an influence.
Well, especially too, like, it sounds like maybe if you could just describe the logistics of how you got to the hospital for people to maybe understand. Did you call the ambulance or did you get driven? Just how you sort of went through that process of transitioning from home to hospital. And
yeah, sure. So we called the ambulance. So basically, like, we agreed that was probably the safest route, like, just in case the baby did happen to arrive, like, while we were driving. Because if you were driving in your car, you know, you may not have the necessary equipment, or it'd just be easier, like in the back of an ambulance, lying down as opposed to being in the car. We just felt that was the safest way that we were going to be able to do it. And then also, and I was able to lie down as well. Like, that was quite useful, lying down on my side in the ambulance, as opposed to sort of sitting up in a chair in a car. Like, it would have been a bit more uncomfortable. But so, yeah, I was sort of assisted to get up on a stretcher, and then, they wheeled me on a stretcher into the ambulance, and it's a pretty quick ambulance ride. Like, it was only about 15 minutes. We're not far away from the hospital.
And your midwife was with you for that trip?
Yeah, she was. Yeah, Jo was in the back of the ambulance with me, and and Charlie was just so close to arriving in the ambulance too. I just remember that, you know, her just cheerleading me on. She's like, "Oh, you're so close, Sarah. You're like, you're nearly there." But yeah, just didn't quite make it.
Yeah. Well, to me, that beautiful experience just goes to show that you were empowered and surrounded by support people. You had your obstetrician that was like going for you too and saying yes to the home birth, and no matter what happened, you had the techniques, you had the affirmations, and like you said, just because it didn't go to plan, it doesn't mean that you couldn't gauge that beautiful experience and hold on to that, I suppose, and be surrounded by that love and support. And that's just what the mama needs.
Yeah, exactly. That's right. I just think that's so important. Like, when things aren't going like as you fully planned, you do need to be able to have trusted caregivers that are there to have you back and to work consistently with what you might have wanted. Yeah. And to provide the best outcome for the mother and for the baby.
Yeah, exactly. And in a quiet and loving and gentle way, I think.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah, respect is just so important, and I felt like, you know, I was really respected, and like the obstetrician Lisa, she just watched me for a while. Like, she didn't say, you know, right, this is what's going to happen, we need to do this. She was just so respectful in the way that she sat back for a while, and then she thought, look, I'm going to make this suggestion. This is what I suggest that we do. What do you think about this? And we all had the opportunity to talk about it. You know, what would be, you know, what's the positives and negatives of that, and that was the best decision, because we were able to make it together.
Beautiful. Like you said, language in birth is just so important, especially for the birthing mother.
That's right. It is. Yeah, it's so important not to disempower the woman or to be disrespectful or to, you know, to just tell people how it's going to happen. You know, you can still ask them questions and be gentle about it.
Yeah, you're exactly right. Well, thank you, because that was really good to hear that. And so 1 year late, 1 year thereabouts later, you became pregnant again with Lila.
Yeah, about 18 months.
18 months, yeah.
Yes, that's right. Yeah, so we got pregnant, which went to plan. Like we were on holiday in Italy and France, actually, and the plan was to basically conceive at the end of the holiday.
That's so romantic.
Yeah, that's right. And yeah, that worked. Didn't take very long. So yes, fast forward through a straightforward pregnancy again. Like there was nothing particularly, you know, remarkable about that pregnancy, like other than just feeling uncomfortable towards the end. And I had a planned home birth again, and we had Jo, our midwife, again, which was wonderful because we knew Jo already from the first birth and I'd stayed in contact with her. So to have that, you know, that really trusting relationship with her, like, was just so wonderful again during the pregnancy to have her, you know, just know what my history was. And of course, you know, we went over everything again and sort of went through all the standard pregnancy questions and things like that. But it was just good to even have that stronger foundation than what we had the first time around. And yes, in the second pregnancy, I got to actually about 41 weeks and 2 days I was. So it was a lot longer than what Charlie's pregnancy was, because Charlie's was about 38 and a half weeks. So I was fairly over it by 41 weeks and feeling pretty uncomfortable. And I was trying not to be surprised as well. Like, I was trying not to have it in my head that I was going to go into labour like before the 40-week mark. But yeah, that didn't really work. I still had it in my head that, you know, why was I over 40 weeks when I knew full well that a normal gestation is anything up to 42 weeks. But anyway, like, I eventually sort of, after having weeks and weeks and weeks of Braxton Hicks, the surges started to increase at about the 41-week mark. But because I'd been having Braxton Hicks for so long, I didn't really think much of it. I kind of just thought, oh, well, you know, it's probably nothing, and just kept on going. And so at about that 41-week mark, I think, I was in bed at night and feeling what I thought were Braxton Hicks. And I just slept through it. Like, there wasn't sort of anything particularly remarkable. And so I slept, and the next morning I woke up and I'm like, oh yeah, I'm still pregnant. And then the next day, I think I had a few more Braxton Hicks and things during the day, but nothing too much. And then that night I had some more Braxton Hicks, and actually, like, all in this lead up, I should say as well, like in the weeks beforehand, Andrew and I had been doing a lot of hypnobirthing practice. So we had been doing this technique called the birth rehearsal, which is we sort of bring a lot of the hypnobirthing techniques together and working together as a partnership. So that would be me basically sitting on the chair and Andrew doing some light touch and speaking some affirmations to me and having some music playing in the background and just setting up a generally sort of romantic atmosphere. And then also, like, a few visualizations as well. Like, there are a few sort of visualizations that the birth rehearsal recording was going through to be able to just get that practice in the mind, because it's really important to practice those techniques. So they are useful, like, when you're in the birth process, because if you don't actually practice them, then your brain doesn't really have a memory of them. So it's important to be able to draw on them.
So you were practicing daily leading towards a birth?
Probably in the last week or two beforehand, we'd do something daily. And if it wasn't Andrew and I together, I'd be doing something. Like, I'd be listening to something on my phone, like a MP3 recording on my phone, or just visualising this particular strategy called the bubble of comfort, which is like visualizing yourself in a bubble and then visualizing yourself in a serene, comforting place. And that place for me was the climbing Mount Villarica in Chile, actually, and being surrounded by condors as we climbed the mountain in the snow. So it was a pretty special moment, and I was regularly visualising that, like as this safe, happy, comfortable place to return to in my mind. So that was something that was really useful for me, and I was practicing that a lot. So we were doing lots of regular practice, and if it wasn't just Andrew and I, it was me doing something. And we used a lot of acupressure as well, like in the couple of weeks leading up to it as well, to help stimulate surges. There's some acupressure points that really do sort of help that. And also we were using some clary sage too, which is aromatherapy, which is said to help stimulate surges. So they were probably helping my Braxton Hicks and helping to prepare my body. I could certainly feel things happening, but it didn't sort of bring on full-on labour, obviously, because my body obviously wasn't ready for it. But all of that, I think, was giving my body good practice, though. And that's what the Braxton Hicks are designed to do, to be helping your uterus to strengthen and help those muscles to work. So I think all of that obviously must have helped the labour process in the end. But anyway, on the night where I did start to actually increase in my labour, things did actually start to increase eventually. It was about 2:00 in the morning, I think, and I woke up and I was starting to have, some more intense surges where I was actually starting to have to breathe through them and visualise that bubble of comfort, and that was really working well. But and then a funny thing happened at about that time when I woke up. Charlie, my daughter, woke up, who was in the other room, and she shouted out to us, "My bum sore, my bum sore, my bum sore." It was really strange. And she ran into our room saying, "My bum sore," and she wanted us to check it. It was really odd. And, yeah, there was nothing wrong with it that we could see, that she demanded for us to put some cream on it. And, and so that's what we did. And she laid in bed with us for a while, and she was fairly awake after that, and which didn't matter too much anyway, because I was pretty awake myself at that point. But I was just sort of breathing through surges as Charlie was just lying there. And eventually Charlie went back to sleep and Andrew went back to sleep, and I think at about 5:00 in the morning I felt like, this was actually probably going to be the day, like we were finally going to meet Lila. And so I got up and started preparing the birth space. So I got some candles and put them around and lit them and played some affirmations in the background. And what else did I do? I think I got a few snacks ready and sat on the gym ball, the birth ball, and just sort of bounced around and breathed and yeah, it was really nice, and I was really happy and feeling really relaxed. And I think about an hour later Andrew got up and he was wondering what I was doing. He was a bit surprised to see all the candles lit. I think he didn't really think I was going to go into labour either, because I'd been talking about all these Braxton Hicks for so long. So he was kind of like, "Oh, okay," and he was very calm and relaxed about the whole thing too. And we just sat around for a while and talked quietly, and I continued to breathe through the surges, and it was all very, very manageable at that point. And I think, I can't even remember how far apart they are, because I wasn't really timing them too much, but at a guess it was probably about one surge every 10 or 15 minutes or so. And it just sort of progressed along like that for a few hours, like it wasn't anything untoward at all. And it made me think, well, maybe nothing's actually going to happen today. And so we called Jo and told her what was going on. And she said that, don't be surprised if things happen really quickly. Like once it starts, it's probably quite likely that things are going to happen pretty fast. And she said, make sure you don't leave it too late. And so she was pretty much on the way, like, or nearby, like having coffee nearby, just in case we did call her. And I was, I was paying attention to that, but then I was also thinking, oh well, nothing too much is happening, so we'll just wait and see. And then at about 9 o'clock, Charlie woke up, and then we thought that the best decision would be is for Charlie to actually go to her nan's house for the day. I wasn't 100% decided on what we would do with her, but we had options for either her nan to pick her up or our neighbour to look after her on the day of the birth. And so that's what we did anyway. Like, her nan picked her up and took her about an hour later. And again, like, things were sort of just about the same, sort of not really progressing too much, and it was entirely manageable. So Andrew and I were just sort of having some nice time at home, like some quiet time actually, without Charlie. It was quite nice. And I think we called Jo again and told her what was going on, and Jo suggested that maybe we should go for a walk. And we live at the beach, so it's a great place to go for a walk. So that's what we did. Like, we went for a walk together. And I continued to have surges like during the walk, and it was really good because I could walk through them. Walking through them was really useful, instead of just standing and breathing through it. Like, it was quite useful to just keep walking through them. And then on the way back from our walk, like, we ran into our neighbour, who we're quite close to, and we were having a chat to her, and then I was sort of just pausing every so often, like when I was having a surge, and we were just chatting to her, and then I think eventually I went inside, like, to just sort of be by myself, and then Andrew came inside, and then things did start to increase at that point. Like, the walk obviously did help it, because the surges actually started to become closer together. So we called Jo, and she arrived at about 1:30 in the afternoon, I think, around about that time. And again, like, her presence, like, was just exactly what you need in a birth. Like, it was just so serene and happy and confident. And so she just walked in and gave each of us a little cuddle, and she was really excited to meet our baby today. And I think she checked my blood pressure and checked the baby, and with the Doppler, and baby was fine, and blood pressure was fine. And so we just sort of chatted a little bit, and then I would breathe through the surges. And by that point, as it was becoming more intense, I was leaning over the side of the couch, sort of kneeling on the couch, and then leaning over the side with some cushions. And Andrew was doing some light touch on my back, which is, again, that wonderful technique to help release the endorphins. And I was also asking him to read through some affirmations. So we had this little what's called a birth cheat sheet of all the different things that Andrew could do for me. Like, so it's a little laminated sheet with a list of various positions and suggestions and affirmations and different questions to ask the caregivers too, like, should anything happen. So that was really useful for him. Like, so I was able to just wave it under his nose and say, read this while I'm having a surge. And that was really, really good for Andrew to be sort of just whispering the affirmations in my ear. Like, it really kept me focused. Because by that point, like, things were becoming pretty intense. And once you sort of get to that nearing transition point, like, it's pretty hard to use the hypnobirthing strategies on your own. You kind of do need to have that support person there sort of telling you those comforting words that you're tuned to being relaxed too. It's just harder to draw on them yourself. So if you've got someone that that you love and care about reading you those affirmations, it's really affirming and comforting and helps produce that relaxation. So I was finding that really useful, and that I really needed it. Like, if he wasn't there, like during a surge, like, I found it really hard to do it on my own. And I think at one point, like, when he had to go to the toilet or something, Jo stepped into his place. So she did the light touch and read the affirmations to me. And again, like, it felt like we were a team. It felt like, what was happening wasn't too much for me because we were doing it together. and things just increased, and I was just having back-to-back surges. So that was my transition point. Like, and I was able to sort of identify that in my head as well. I was able to, I guess because I'd felt it before, I was able to think, okay, well, you know, probably seeing as I'm not getting a break now, it's not too far away. And at that point, I was hanging off Andrew. So, like, I was standing up and hanging off his neck, and he was sort of bearing all my weight during each surge. And I felt that was immensely comforting. And again, like, I was finding it difficult to do it without him. But that hanging just gave my body some relief. And again, those affirmations that he was whispering in my ear and the light touch were just what I needed to be able to stay focused. And then I think the birth photographer Jess arrived, like at sort of around like when I was transitioning, and Leah, our backup midwife, arrived then too, I think. I'm not 100% sure because I don't sort of fully remember them arriving because I was in that transition point. And also, like, that was perfect because, you know, it just showed what an unobtrusive sort of quiet presence they both had too. And then I was in that transition period. Like, it was probably for about 20 minutes, I reckon, something like that. It wasn't that long. And then I felt a change in my body. Like, I felt that there was a difference in what was happening. Like, I felt this need to squat down. Like, I felt like I could sort of half squat and hold my knees and sort of and bear down. Basically, like, it was just this bearing down feeling, like it was different to the transition and I was getting a break. So, yeah, I felt that happening. And then Joe said, well, let's get in the pool. I think, yeah, it could be a good idea for you to get in the pool. And I'd kind of forgotten about the birth pool at that point. Like, we had filled it up a good few hours earlier. So it was all ready to go. And then I got in the pool and I felt, yeah, immense relief, like that beautiful warm water engulfing me. And I just thought, well, why wasn't I in this earlier? Kind of lost track of it. But but yeah, it was great to get in the pool. And by that stage, like, I knew that I was in the second stage and that, you know, baby probably wasn't very far away from arriving. And then I was sort of, it was really very, very intense pressure. And then it reminded me of the birth with Charlie and how I had such a long second stage with Charlie, and I was hoping in my mind that it wasn't going to be like that. And I'd done a lot of preparation actually during the pregnancy to visualize my body opening, and using visualizations like the opening lotus flower to really help release some of the fear, I guess, that had accumulated from having such a long second stage last time. So yeah, there wasn't actually fear, but it was more just hope that things were going to be quicker. And again, like Andrew speaking to me, those affirmations were like about my body opening and just allowing your body to bear down. That those sorts of words were really, really helpful for me, and I was able to focus on those words instead of letting my mind get carried away with, oh, you know, I hope it's shorter, or, you know, how long is this going to be? Like, again, he gave me that focus point. And then what happened? And then I noticed the rhythm to my surges as well. Like, I noticed that there was a real sort of intense rhythm of 4 surges. Like, I'd get these 4 pushing surges, and then there'd be a break. And so I'd give myself some time to rest, and then there'd be these 4 intense surges and then a break. And it was just this really nice rhythm. So that was really so useful for me to be able to count them and then to get my break. So yeah, that was a really positive thing that I noticed. And then at the crowning stage, that was probably about 15 minutes in or something, I started to feel like that burning sensation. And then the words came to my mind, ring of fire, because my friend had said that, oh, watch out for that ring of fire. That kills. That hurts so much. She'd said that to me a few years ago. And wonderful words. Yeah. So that came to my mind, like when I was crowning. And then the words that replaced that were numbing my perineum, which are words that are from the lotus flower script. So because I'd listened to that script so much, those words actually came to me like at that time of the crowning. So I felt the sensation. I thought ring of fire, then my mind replaced it with numbing. And then I was just saying to myself under my breath, numbing, 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 numbing. And that was what I felt. I mean, I'm not saying it wasn't still really hard, but like that was my focus point. So instead of thinking, oh, ring of fire, this is terrible, I can't stand this, I was able to shift it to numbing and focusing and, focusing on my body surging and my baby coming. And, yeah, and that really worked. And shortly, so you go.
Sorry, I was just going to say that's amazing because that just shows the beauty of the training, I suppose, that your mind's just thrown you this curveball that that you haven't thought about for a while, and then overlapping that is just the beautiful training practices that you have encompassed.
Yeah, that's cool. Right. And Andrew wasn't even saying it to me. I wasn't even listening to anything. I was just listening to music at that point. So, all that training I'd done, my mind just saved me and gave me what I needed. So
that's really
cool. And then a couple of surges later, and Lila was out, and I grabbed her. I could feel her head at the crowning point, and so I was reaching down, and then I knew that she was about to come out. So another surge later, and I reached down and grabbed her, and Joe sort of just adjusted Lila, and then I was able to grab Lila and bring her straight up onto my chest. And then, I just couldn't believe it. I was so overwhelmed that, we had our water birth at home.
Wow.
And then I said the words, I did it. Yeah, so, and then, it's just this really, it's this really amazing moment too. And it's like as soon as the baby's born, your body stops, it stops this major intensity, and it's like you wake up almost, you come back into the room, and then I could see everyone in the room, and I think I said hello to Jess and to Leah. I'm like, oh, hi. So I finally sort of noticed that they were in the room, and it was so amazing to see the love and the support of everyone in the room, that had seen the moment and was seeing Lila on my chest. Yeah, it was amazing.
I'm really glad that you shared these pictures too. I can't wait to show them. The first one, just what you described, just shows that I can't believe I did this moment. And then the next one's sort of you looking around with this beautiful glowing face, and you're clutching little Lila, and it's just, that speaks the whole story, that photo. It's just gorgeous, just gorgeous glowing face on you, and it's just that's it, there it is.
That's right. I know, it's absolutely amazing, those photos that Jess took. Every single photo that she took, it just captured the moment, and that's it, that photo. It just says it all, does it? Don't even need to speak.
It's just precious, absolutely precious.
Yeah, I'm so glad that we decided to have her there at our birth. It was just the most amazing thing to have all those photos, and just basically those photos just reflected back at me what my birth experience was.
Someone said something to me last week about having more babies, and she's made a really good point, because I feel listening to these shows that it's just going to make me want to have babies all the time. And she said, well, if you just feel that way, go back and look at your birth photos, and then you can relive it again.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, and just tell your story to someone, I just have.
Yeah, exactly. I can just listen to all these stories and get to feel it. There is this, I don't know, it's like a universal, I feel something innately in me when I hear your story, and it's like some kind of, I don't know, transcending mother connection or something. So there's something in it, and listening to that, it just made me feel about possibilities and a connection to you, I think, too.
That's really amazing, isn't it? And I think you're right. It just sort of, it unites mothers, doesn't it? Because you know the feelings, and to be able to share in someone else's journey, it does provide that connection, and it's that power of language again that I was talking about before, and how emotive the birth process is. You just, such vulnerability, in the birth process, that you just, you need to feel completely supported and have that trust in everyone around you in the room, because it is like, it's just so life-changing.
Yeah. And that's what I'm getting, is just support. And whether it's, childbirth education and what you're doing it's just making that impact on someone in their lives and having that support where they can tap into their innate tools that they have in their body to birth the baby.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's exactly right. And that's what it comes down to. We should be able to just do it innately, because certainly our bodies are completely designed for birth. Yeah. But unfortunately, like all the negativity that surrounds birth and all the negative birth stories that we hear, it hardwires us against our instinct. Yeah. We're just constantly given this message that you're not going to be okay, that you're going to need something, or that you might not be able to do it, or it's too hard, or it's too painful, or it's too traumatic even.
Yeah, exactly. So recovery and postpartum, do you want to just briefly talk about that with Lila and how you went maybe for the first few months?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, so when Lila was born, as soon as she was born, everything was fine in the hours after. Like, so it was a natural placenta delivery, and that was fine. And I didn't have any tearing. So my recovery was excellent. Like, the next day I was literally up cooking eggs for breakfast for everyone.
I did that too. If you listen to my birth story at the end, I within hours I was cooking breakfast for everyone, full of like just bouncing around, and I think that was like I just had all this energy and resource, and I just felt really good, and I felt I could do it, and I wanted to nourish everyone and myself, and so I did the same thing.
So wonderful.
Yeah.
And it's surprising for a lot of people to hear that, isn't it? That you can have such energy like after the birth process. I think also partly because you've been, pregnant for so long and so unable to do things really. I was in the end. And then all those wonderful birth hormones at the end as well, of course, those big surges of oxytocin really fill you with energy. Yeah. And to be able to nurture and look after your baby and your family.
Yeah, exactly. Yes. Well said.
That's certainly how it was for me. And then the second day, Andrew and I and Charlie and Lila, like, we all went out as a family and went out for lunch, and then we actually went and went to Freedom Furniture and bought an entertainment unit, as you do.
As you do.
In the postpartum period. And then other people, like in the store, like, we're like, oh, how old's your baby? And then we said, 2 days. And they're like, what? Really? You look amazing. Wow. They couldn't believe it. So certainly not typical. And so, everything like in the months after were fine. Lila was a very, very relaxed, and still is, very calm, very, very happy baby. Again, like, we don't hear much of her, like, other than she talks a lot. She sort of chatters away and smiles a lot and laughs. Yeah. But she's certainly a very, very cruisy little thing too. And my recovery's been fine, as I said. And it was with Charlie too, even though it was a longer birth and I did have that episiotomy, like, it was still like a very quick recovery, and I still felt like I had great amounts of energy, and certainly wasn't sort of feeling sad or anything like that.
Great. And you got follow-up appointments with your midwife came to your house?
Yes. 6 weeks of follow-up appointments.
Right.
Yeah, and then as much as I needed her, which wasn't much. Like, it was really just to monitor Lila and make sure everything was going well there, and to make sure that feeding was okay, and that sort of thing. Yeah.
Great. So in terms of resources, I just wrote a few things down while we're chatting, and I might get you to email me so I can put it up on the show notes. I got affirmations. Maybe it'd be a great idea if you could email me a couple of them that might help other people. The light touch and the birth cheat sheet, which might be good for you to sort of briefly mention, and the clary sage.
Yeah. No, I can make all those points for you, and the birth cheat sheet is something that's included in the program that I teach.
Great.
So I can't really share that.
Yeah.
But I can certainly sort of talk about the other things, and things like the clary sage and the light touch and the affirmations, and the affirmations are available at from my website actually. You can download them as an MP3, and I found, as I've mentioned to you, they were so useful for me. And even in the first birth, where I didn't actually do the hypnobirthing course, I still listened to the affirmations a lot, and they were the words that did come to me in Charlie's birth.
Great. Yeah, well, we'll link over to your website and all your course details and that too, so we can get people sort of talking to you about the course.
Thank you. Yeah, that'd be great.
Great. All
to
right.
be able to share with others.
Yeah, definitely. So thank you. That's that. Thank you. A big thank you for sharing. Yeah. Is there any parting wise mama words that you'd like to give to people?
Just prepare. That's what I'd say. Prepare for the birth experience that you want. That just hoping for something is unlikely to happen the way that you want it to. It might, but I think for birth, if you want it to be a certain way, and again, bearing in mind that that you can't actually control what actually happens in the birth process, but you can prepare for any turn that your birth might take. So, you might not end up having that natural birth. You might have the cesarean, or you might have the epidural, but you can still have something like the affirmations to be able to help you to cope with whatever it is that happens, and to have that support person that is there with you, giving you all these tools to be able to help you to focus and relax. And you can only do those things with some preparation by reading lots of different stories, or listening to stories on podcasts, or reading good books about birth, or really asking your caregivers lots of questions about what their philosophy is about birth, and giving yourself some tools yourself to be able to prepare your mind, I think, are the other things that I'd suggest for people. And they're certainly all the things that I did with my births, and I wasn't lucky. I did a lot of preparation to get the birth experiences that I had.
Okay, great. Well, thank you for sharing that, and again, thank you for coming on and sharing your stories with us.
Yeah, my pleasure. Thanks for inviting me.
No problem, Sarah.
I'll pass the word on to anyone that wants to share their stories with you as well.
Beautiful. Great news. Did you connect with this episode? Then head over to our website, circleofbirth.com. There you'll find show notes, pictures, resources, and potentially connect with today's storyteller. Don't forget to sign up to be updated with new empowering episodes and content. Help the show grow by contributing a tip in the jar to make sure we can continue to better the podcast and connect more and more to the wisdom of birth and each other. Hey, and don't forget the iTunes rating. This has been another episode of the Birth Share Project. We breathe, we birth, we empower.